What's going on, guys? I want to put out a short video. It's been a couple days and I've been kind of busy, so apologies for that. Before I get into this video, I do want to update on these things from time to time. There is a new promotion right now, so if anyone uses the FEMEX link, anyone who newly signs up using that FEMEX link, you are going to be placed right into VIP tier 2. So you'll see a considerable reduction in your fees, and that lasts for a month. So I would take advantage of it for a month. Obviously, trade wherever you want to trade, but those fees add up, especially if you're doing a lot of trading. So anyway, we'll get right into it. I'm just going to touch on BTC, a few points on alts, try to keep this short and sweet, and then get back to doing these consistently. So there isn't a whole lot that has been worth touching on when it comes to BTC. Like it hasn't done anything different over the last couple of days. It's just grinded up still. Very large flows in the New York session. MicroStrategy just ripping. Sailor buying more BTC. It is sort of the perfect situation right now. Stocks are a little bit jittery, but Bitcoin does not care. And there was some like back and forth news about Russia, Ukraine, and that possibly escalating. And this market doesn't really care about anything right now. Although I will say there was some positive news this morning, and both BTC and alts didn't really seem to digest that information as, I guess, responsively or as aggressively as we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Like positive update, you see positive price action. So today I think the news was about, there's a couple things I'm pretty sure. More sailor buying, so more sailor buying announced, and then news about Trump mulling some crypto White House specialist. I don't remember, but either way, the alts took quite a beating today. So some there was a lot of dispersion, but there's like if you were in Hippo, that thing got its ass kicked. Some alts holding up better than others, but we're seeing a good amount of leverage build up in alts, and Bitcoin continues to climb. And there's not a lot of people that are exposed to BTC. That's the way it is. I mean, Bitcoin is very expensive compared to shitcoins on Solana, and it's Solana has taken a ton of attention, a ton of mind share, and I get it, but the people that are interested in BTC don't seem to be people that are on CT or that are native to this market. It seems like it is people outside of this market starting to get let's say reinterested, and their picks are not necessarily the picks of CT, which is again crypto Twitter, very much an echo chamber. So you're seeing things across exchanges that are to myself, maybe some other people that have been around for a long time, might not seem like it makes sense that they're moving, right? Like why is Cardano pumping? Why is Ripple pumping? There's obviously some favorable outcomes with regard to the SEC and Ripple, but just other Dino stuff pumping, and some of the flavors of the last year, the last couple of quarters, not really catching much attention. Using you could use WIF as a good example. WIF performance, let's say, against something like Bonk. But yeah, so as far as BTC goes, again, nothing has really changed. You could see that I said a couple days ago that when you have like the first time that you are in, let me change this, the first time that you are in overbought conditions on the high time frame, especially when you've broken outside of a range, you have to reset how you look at this thing. I think momentum indicators are really useful. I used the CCI back in the day. That's a commodity channel index. It's a little bit more responsive, but RSI, basically the same thing. The first time that this gets overbought is when it's outside of a range. I mean, that's a change in conditions. That's a really bullish sign. That's a sign you want to get behind. It's not something where you want to, people take the momentum indicators or momentum oscillators and they say, you sell overbought, you buy oversold. but that's just not the case. In strong trending markets, markets remain overbought, and strong trends down, they remain oversold, and that can persist for quite some time. And it's often a good idea to bet on that persisting if it's the first time when you have a change in conditions. In this case, a new all-time high, a break outside of a multi-month, multi-quarter structure, and it's the first time that it's an overbought territory. Uh, that was the reasoning I had for back here as to why this is not going to give a bigger pullback, right? So you guys saw me initially sell this high right here publicly, and then I think that 2 days that followed, I had mentioned I'm just getting back in because it's not going to pull back much more. Like everyone anticipating that in the short term this thing is going to correct massively just doesn't get it. They haven't been in this market long enough. They haven't been in other markets long enough, and it's only something that you could get through experience. When you have a big change like that, everyone sees it. Right? Everyone wants a piece of this, and everyone has the same kind of levels that they're looking at. So what that means is you're going to get a bunch of front running, and it's never going to revisit your level. Trading like textbook TA, which is, in my opinion, a lot of times garbage. It's good for, defining risk, but it's not predictive. It's not prescriptive. It's descriptive, right? So this is, in my opinion, looking at BTC. I mean, it is a mega strong trend right now, correcting vertically. Right. So we've seen a good amount of washouts. We've seen, for example, a good amount of a pickup in 3-month annualized basis. So quarterly's picking back up, but nowhere near like really wild territory yet. Funding has actually come down a little bit. We've had periods where they've jammed it up, and we've seen a bunch of open interest get in behind the move. But then that's come up, and the market has traded higher still. So you're seeing those derivative positions come off, and the market is remaining bid, and it's because you have a voracious spot market, right? Positive news yesterday also, Howard Lutnick, the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, another Long Island guy, props to that, but he is going to be the Commerce Secretary. So rather than the Treasury Secretary, he's going to be the Commerce Secretary, and you could basically guarantee that crypto is going to be more integrated to the financial system, the payment system, and this is extremely bullish. Like major, I've been trying to reiterate this multiple times over the last couple of weeks. Like if you are just trading this, technically saying like deviation or whatever, some kind of garbage, it's not moving the way it should. You're missing it. Like there's been a major change. So I can't say that enough. So this again has as I've said, like there is a voracious bid on Coinbase, and I think it was ever since yesterday's news. I think it really started showing up. It's been present for a while now, but it's been on and off. Perps got a little bit hot, at least right after the initial all-time high break, which makes sense. Wash out a little bit of that leverage, and now Coinbase is trading 150 points above Perps and 120 points above the Binance spot market. So I mean, there is a really hungry spot bid right now, and the derivative markets are able to correct into that, and for us to continue to trade higher. The way this is trading right now, this is how I'm looking at it. I am trying to be tactical with my futures positions. I think that if you look at this, if you look at something like, let's say, just a 4-hour chart, and the chart I have on right here, so this 30-minute chart, not going into any intraday stuff in this video, just giving a sort of higher time frame, bigger picture look, because I think that's important right now. Like shaking yourself out of position because of intraday moves. Like if it happened already today, maybe I'll cover it in a different video. We'll talk about some setups, but focusing too much on the lower time frames, and you're going to get jammed up. Like because the higher time frame trend has not broken down. We're still holding weekly VWAP. We're still holding one standard deviation of monthly VWAP. Like this thing it's a really strong trend. So the way I look at it now, though, is I don't want to take, honestly, any kind of extra risk up here, because I think that if you look at this just from a risk reward standpoint, like I think that this market right now is melting up to 100K. I think 100K is, I said a couple weeks back, like 6K on the SPX, so the S&P is a black hole, right? We're going to get pulled into that, and it doesn't make sense to really step in the way of that. I think we're at that level right now with BTC. I had said the same thing, and that's with 100K, excuse me. I'd said the same thing when we were back here. When we were trading back here, and I said we're within. It was when we were within 3 to 5% of all-time highs. So we're actually somewhere right around here. It probably was right around here. I'd said this thing is. It's just gonna. There's gravitational pull at this point. Like it's not going to get this close and then that be the top. Like we might correct a little bit, but we're going through that all-time high. And I think I said specifically, we're either going to blast through it and we'll see a continuation move, or we'll take it, right? We'll take the all-time high and then maybe we'll trade back below and we'll do it a little bit longer. But there was just no way that we weren't going to trade through that. I think the same thing is taking place right now with 100K. A lot of people honestly are just looking at this now and joining this and thinking I want to be in this for the 100K break and then maybe have much grander plans for this after that. A lot of us have been down from the break, right? Adding extra on the break. You had 4 days to get involved in this trend. There was like no excuse for you not to be bullish on that break. You could have lost 5% if we traded back within. You have to be willing to because of how much meat was on the bone for that setup. But the way I look at it right now is it's honestly, from here, let's say to 100K, which is a stone's throw, it's 5% away. That is not that attractive for me, right? Obviously remain in spot, but to really lever up at this point, because I'm looking at it this way. I'm looking at, okay, so we have 5% to 100K. I think you hit 100K, you're going to see a lot more profit taking. It's going to be, if anything, it's going to be really volatile. And then I could see a deeper pullback, right? Trading back in the 80s, trading back to maybe 85, taking that level that I said would be really interesting back here. We never traded back down to it. And I could see something like that, where this is, I've seen this before, where it's kind of doing this. Let me change that real quick. It's putting in this structure that's starting to get parabolic intraday on the low time frames, not intraday, looking at like the 4-hour chart, but it's curving up, right? Which is usually setting up for one final expansion. And it's not like this is given much of an entry. If you look at this on the hourly chart, it's just higher low after higher low. There's really not a whole lot of interruption. I mean, we haven't really taken stops. We haven't really tested anything. Here's a stop taken here, just looking at a local low. But other than that, I mean, this thing has been gobbled up all the way. So I look at something like this as, one, I think you get something that takes out 100, but then I think it sets up for the ultimate sort of liquidation run that, scares everybody and then corrects and then trades just as hard back higher. So I'm keeping that in mind because you're looking at, maybe you have a 5% setup, just considering like dynamic risk reward from here. Maybe you have 5% setup on the board, but then the potential loss, if this pokes up, gets front ran, wipes down, my thinking is this stop won't be clean, right? So if you're opening up a futures position, maybe you just isolate margin, isolate a sub account, and use the liquidation level as a stop loss, because otherwise, I mean, if you are getting stopped out of something that cascades down, you're gonna experience a good amount of slip. That's just my opinion. I think that we're going to squeeze up to 100. I don't see us doing much of a correction, honestly, before we continue to squeeze towards that level. Maybe it's 97 to 98, who knows? But it just, the way it's trading right now, it doesn't say that it's just going to, like the way this is trading right now, it's not just going to roll over, right? It's starting to accelerate. Again, there is a bigger trade right now. Sailors probably buying more at this point. There are some people that are buying on the anticipation that this is going to be added as a reserve asset. There's just literally we went from the most antagonistic environment for BTC to the most supportive environment. So the market is pricing that in right now. There is some jitters in traditional markets. There's sort of this little bit of weakness post-election. We traded back down we didn't completely give back the election gains. We almost did in the S&P. But a lot of this move was, one, positive on behalf of Trump presidency, and then two, it was like just election volatility coming off, or excuse me, I should say, vol coming off because of the election in terms of hedges being put on and then being unwound and market makers having to settle and so forth. So, there's a good mechanical reason for this move, as well as, again, people being bullish. But it doesn't seem like crypto really cares that much. again, I laid out sort of the reasons that things could really shift big picture, but it doesn't. I talked about that in the last video, excuse me. But I don't think we're looking at that right now, and I don't think it really makes sense to think about that too much. ETH BTC continue to make new lows. I don't think if Bitcoin breaks up continually, I don't think ETH gets left behind anymore. There has been, again, more of a shift on Coinbase now during the New York session. Someone is buying. It's trading a little bit more aggressively above Binance than it had been for the last year plus. So I think that trade it's a weaker trade, right? I mean, you could put your money elsewhere and do better, but for everyone who continues to talk about ETH, I don't think this thing is going to continue to bleed lower. You don't trade the pair. You trade this as a singular asset, right? ETH BTC, I think, sometimes makes people think that this isn't returning anything. It's just obviously, your money has been better elsewhere. As far as some alts go, I mean, I still think it's going to be memes until that show really starts to be obvious that it's changing. But you could see some of the pairs, I mean, in the last few hours, the last day have got an ass kicking. Goat, some of the cat coins, Nero, I think this is, what's expected. You're going to see that there's positioning that gets cleaned up. These are getting pretty hot, and people are kind of, I don't know. It seems like there's a little bit of there was a crescendo of applause earlier this morning and last night, and it's usually that's like when it's time to maybe take some off. But big picture, it doesn't look like there's any reason to assume that there's a larger change on the horizon. That could be, that could be famous last words. But Bitcoin's going to continue to move up. That's just my opinion. We're going to continue to trade toward 100K before any major correction. And then I would expect that in the first major correction, alts probably get absolutely massacred in that brief period. But you want to immediately pull out your relative performance charts, whatever you use to identify who's coming off the lows the hardest, and then you're probably going to see some absolute face ripper moves in alts. But I think that covers it. I mean, nothing has really changed. I think the most exciting time will be. I think we still have it ahead of us. Like, there's been a ton of outperformance over the last couple of weeks. We've been chilling during this consolidation. Bitcoin is still doing its thing, grinding higher. But I think the next really exciting period will be when we get some kind of more meaningful correction in BTC, and then you see some of that money and that wealth effect trickle into alts. And it'll be kind of obvious. I think so. I mean, you'll wake up to it. It won't be obvious what you should pull right away, or pair into right away. But I think you'll wake up and, maybe you won't wake up. It'll be you're in a better time zone, but you'll see things that are just ripping off the lows. So be mindful of that. But this thing looks, it's just turbo strong at this point. And, there's a good reason for that. Not a lot of people had exposure to this, and suddenly they realize that the world is like coming around to BTC again, right? We've seen this happen multiple times. So just remember to take some profits on the way up, because don't get too sort of enamored by the trend. This is definitely going to go through another boring ass period, but right now we finally get to enjoy ourselves. So anyhow, just wanted to give this update. I'll be more active in the Telegram. Be sure to check out those links in the description. It was specifically the Femex one is where you get a month of that VIP treatment. And then I'll probably try to add to that. I know there's going to be a lot of trading going on right now, so I'll vet good exchanges and give you my opinion on, tools and all that stuff as we continue to hang out on the Telegram. And I say that because there's been a lot of people that obviously don't need that right now because they've been following me long enough. But there's a lot of new followers. My following count is going up, and the Telegram is growing, and I'm getting a lot of questions like, hey, where do you trade? And it's like, all right, there are definitely new people here. All right, guys, have a good evening.